Not only did Adidas confirm that Yeezys are going to be coming back in 2024, but it sounds like they're going to be discounted too. As I quote from the Adidas CEO himself during the earnings call, "Our consumer, trade, and retail research indicates that we should at least be able to sell the remaining Yeezy inventory at cost or more. This is why we have only written off remaining inventory that was either damaged or very broken in sizes." In other words, Adidas is prepared to sell these Yeezys below retail as long as it's still above the cost to produce and market these products, which I'd assume is extremely low, leaving plenty of room for absolutely massive discounts this year. This also means that some of these discounts could lead to extremely profitable opportunities and even investment opportunities too, all of which I'm going to make sure I try my best to keep you guys updated with, so make sure you subscribe and enable post notifications. And for completely free sneaker guides and notifications, make sure to check out the link below. As Adidas mentions on their website, the outperformance was driven by better than expected operational business in Q4 and the company's decision to not write off the vast majority of its existing Yeezy inventory. Again, they're trying to emphasize to the investors that a big reason for the financial success had to do with the fact that they decided to not write off Yeezys. And as I've been implying throughout these last Yeezy update videos, it's simply the obvious financial decision to not write off the Yeezys and to sell them. Despite there being some controversy, if you follow the money, this is going to be the obvious decision they take. And so far, that seems to be the case, and it looks like that's going to continue being the case too. Now, they also mentioned, following the latest decision, the 2023 operating profit now only includes a low double-digit million amount of Yeezy-related inventory write-offs. Instead, the company plans to sell the remaining Yeezy product at least at cost in 2024. Essentially, they're 100% confirming that they are going to be releasing Yeezys, and they do admit that they do have some written off, but they later explain, at least the CEO later explains that the ones that they have written off are primarily due to damage. As I quote from the CEO himself, "Our fourth quarter developed a little better than expected, and we have decided to release preliminary numbers. For the full year, our currency neutral revenues were flat, and we reached an operating profit of 268 million euros. This is 368 million better than what we guided for. The improvement is due to better operating business around 100 million and decision to not write off 268 million of Yeezy inventory. Our consumer, retail, and trade research has shown that we can sell this remaining inventory in 2024 for at least cost price. This is why we have only written off inventory that was either damaged or very broken in sizes." Again, this is great news for two reasons. First of all, it 100% confirms that, like we have been predicting, they are definitely going to be dropping many more Yeezys in 2024. But it also means that they are prepared to potentially sell these for a discounted rate below the price that they're usually listed at, so long as it's above the cost. So we could actually go over the cost to show how low these could really go. Now, I'm sure you could probably make a reasonable guess at how much it costs to make an Adidas sneaker by going on Alibaba, or even just basing it off of prior knowledge of your own, but I did find a really good article from Fashion and Mash titled "How Much Does It Cost to Make an Adidas Shoe?", which essentially breaks everything down pretty well. It's well known that Adidas outsources most of its production to countries where labor is relatively cheap. The reason behind this is that exclusively producing shoes in developed countries would be unsustainable, as it would be expensive. As a result, Adidas predominantly works with independent factories in countries like Indonesia, China, Japan, and Brazil. The factory cost of producing a pair of Adidas shoes that will retail at $100, like a Stan Smith for example, is roughly $20. These costs generally cover the following: materials, everything required for producing a pair of shoes, including the upper fabric, foam, laces, tongue, outsole unit, labor, the wages of all factory workers, factory packing, and the factory's overhead cost and profit. Now, when it comes to a lot of these Adidas sneakers, it might not be $20 like a Stan Smith would be, but it would be in a very similar range. In fact, some of them I would bet are a lot cheaper given how simple they are and how few materials are on them. Now, when it comes to some of the other pairs, like the ones that have boost, like Yeezy 350 for example, that pair might actually be slightly more than $20, but you get the big picture. The big picture is that it's pretty cheap. could range from $20 to $40, and that's still quite insignificant. Then of course there are some shipping costs associated with it, but because they're shipping in bulk, it's quite negligible for each pair, which would be about $1 each. They also cover the custom fees and duties, which will normally come to around $3 for a pair that's $100, meaning if it's normally supposed to retail for $200, it could be $5 to $7. Now, we don't need to get in precisely how much all this would cost together on average, but you get the idea. The idea is that it's extremely cheap. Maybe the entire cost would be $30 to $50, and then when it comes to the markup, because they do have that deal to give Kanye 15% of proceeds, then they might potentially increase that cost proportionally too, but still, at most, the total cost might be somewhere from $60 to $70. Now, if I'm being honest, I definitely cannot see a Yeezy pair of 350s selling anywhere near $70, but it is important to note that the company is prepared to do so if they have any reason for this, and there might potentially be a reason in 2024 why this could happen. Allow me to explain. If you ever wondered why Nike tends to do a lot of Jordan Sneakers Reserve shock drops for bricks that are not very desirable, that, most people wouldn't get too excited over, it's simply to help meet revenue expectations for that particular quarter, or in some cases, even for the year. So if there is a case where there's, say, some Yeezy 350s and Yeezy 500s that have been sitting in stock on the website for multiple weeks or multiple months, say a very undesirable colorway that they just happen to drop a ton of stock for, but next quarter coming around, they need to meet the expectations. In that particular case, on a certain day, they might just put them on sale for a pretty significant rate. And because they only have a very limited time to meet that expectation, it's very possible that they overly discount them more than they actually need to. Rather than keeping them on sale for 5 to 10% throughout the entire quarter, it's very possible that they do some kind of shock discount right before the quarter ends so they can meet expectations, so much as 30 to even 50% depending on what sneaker it is. So it really all depends on what state the economy is. It really depends on how Adidas is performing overall. If they keep missing expectations and it comes to that last minute, it's very likely that we see some absolutely massive discounts. While heavily discounted Yeezys might sound absolutely absurd to some of you, we've actually seen this many times before. It just wasn't on Adidas. Rather, it's been happening pretty often on a lot of Shopify boutiques. Randomly, they'll put up some Yeezy bricks for sale that would normally be sitting, and some of these sales have been as much as 50%. So when it has come to a lot of those drops, we've actually already seen a lot of profitable opportunities come from those, and it's not just Yeezys. This happens with a lot of brick sneakers that would normally not be profitable, but because they're put at such a massive discount, they end up selling out super quickly and end up being profitable too. So the way I see it is we might not get any crazy sales at the beginning of the year, but as the year goes on, and especially towards the end of quarters, I do think there's a high likelihood we do see some pretty wild sales, even for some sneakers that you would not have expected to be on sale, and this would allow for some good profitable opportunities, and maybe even some long-term investing opportunities too. Now, for more opportunities just like this, I'd really encourage you to check out the link below, and it goes far beyond just sneaker reselling too. We do so much more, like concert ticket reselling, stock investing, sports betting promotions, Amazon FBA, and so much more. And even on that same link below, we have 100% free sneaker updates, so I'd really encourage you to check it out. Other than that though, have a fantastic rest of your day, and of course, let's hope for the best.